Hi, hello everyone. Welcome back to my channel. Today let's discuss F.R. Leavis' Book of Criticism, The Great Tradition. The Great Tradition, published in 1948. F.R. Leavis, 1895-1978. F.R. Leavis' The Great Tradition is a manifesto of moral literary criticism, a bold attempt to define greatness in fiction based on depth of moral vision, intelligence, and artistic discipline. It elevates four key novelists while drawing sharp lines against the popular or entertaining fiction. Though challenged in contemporary academia, the book remains a seminal work in a history of English literary criticism, shaping how literature is taught, evaluated, and canonized to this day. First of all, the title of the work. The Great Tradition refers to a canon of English novelists who, according to Leavis, exemplify the highest standards of moral seriousness and artistic merit in an English novel. These writers form a lineage or tradition that prioritizes ethical responsibility, psychological depth, and a linguistic precision. By invoking the idea of a great tradition, Leavis seeks to define and defend a select literary heritage against what he saw as the mediocrity of much of contemporary and past fiction. Inspiration for writing the work. Leavis wrote the work The Great Tradition as a response to the popular but undiscriminating appreciation of novels. He believed that too many readers praised the fiction based on sentimentality, popularity, or surface-level entertainment. Inspired by his mission to restore moral anti-aesthetics, rigor to literary criticism, and influenced by predecessors like Matthew Arnold and T.S. Eliot, Leavis crafted a work that establishes criteria for literary greatness, draws clear line between serious literature and popular fiction, reaffirms literature's moral and cultural purpose, and reacts to cultural and educational decline in post-war Britain. Now let's analyze the central arguments in the work. The English novel has a great tradition of moral seriousness rooted in a few key writers. This tradition is not based on style alone, but on ethical insight, psychological subtlety, and a social critique. Leavis identifies Jane Austen, George Eliot, Henry James, and Joseph Conrad as the primary figures in this tradition. He excludes popular novelists like Charles Dickens, Henry Fielding, and William Makepeace Thackeray, though he later revised his stance on Charles Dickens. Great literature is marked not by popularity, but by its capacity to engage with the human condition through disciplined craftsmanship. Now let's analyze the key themes in the book of essays. First of all, moral seriousness. The novel should be an ethically responsible form reflecting deep moral awareness. Tradition and continuity. A lineage of great novelists sustains the cultural and artistic integrity of English literature. Intelligence and discernment. Great writers exhibit a rare critical intelligence about life, character, and society. Organic form. Great novels are not mechanically constructed, but grow originally from character and moral insight. Cultural elitism. Leavis's work promotes high standards and rigorous selectivity, rejecting popular or sentimental fiction. Now let's go to the division by summary of the work. First, introduction. Establishing the lineage. Leavis opens by rejecting the popular critical practice of treating all novels as equally valuable. He emphasizes the importance of moral intensity and a conscious craftsmanship. Introduces the central thesis, that is, that the great English novelists are Jane Austen, George Eliot, Henry James, and Joseph Conrad. Now chapter first, Jane Austen. He celebrates Jane Austen as the founding figure of the great tradition. He praises her for moral discrimination, irony, and a psychological insight. Her fiction balances form, social observation, and ethical awareness. He claims that Jane Austen has the finest sense of what matters in life and fiction. Chapter 2, George Eliot. He describes Eliot as a moralist and intellectual, deeply concerned with human responsibility and social structures. Especially praises the work Middlemarch as a masterpiece of moral imagination and a narrative form. He criticizes Eliot's later novels like Daniel Deronta for being more didactic and less artistically organic. He emphasizes her role in developing the moral vision and a depth that defined the great tradition. Now chapter 3, Henry James. Leavis admires Henry James' technical precision and psychological subtlety, focuses on the work The Portrait of the Lady and another work The Ambassadors as models of mature fiction. He considers Henry James as a bridge between European intellectualism and English moral seriousness. He praises his exploration of personal integrity, consciousness, and a cultural refinement. Now the fourth part of the work, that is Joseph Conrad. He sees Joseph Conrad as the culmination of the tradition in the modern era, highlights works like A Heart of Darkness, Nostromo, and Lord Jim for their moral complexity and a philosophical depth. Emphasizes Joseph Conrad's exploration of imperialism, identity, and existential crisis. Leavis sees Conrad as taking the English novel to a new ethical and a formal heights, influenced by modernism but rooted in moral seriousness. Now the appendix or exclusions. Henry Fielding, Charles Dickens, William Makepeace Thackeray, etc. Leavis criticizes Fielding's for external characterization and a lack of inner moral realism. He condemns Charles Dickens early in his career for sentimentality, melodrama, and a caricature. He claims that William Makepeace Thackeray lacks ethical bravery and a seriousness. These exclusions underline Leavis' rigorous selectivity and emphasize the importance of inward moral engagement in fiction. Now, let's be familiar with some of the important claims and passages. The great English novelists are Jane Austen, George Eliot, Henry James, and Joseph Conrad, to stop for the moment at that point in the tradition. They are all distinguished by a vital capacity for seriousness and a moral penetration. Literature's purpose is not to entertain, but to educate feeling and a moral intelligence. Now let's talk about the critical reception of the work and the controversies it created. The book received both praise and critique. Some applauded Leavis for bringing rigor and ethical seriousness to literary criticism. Others accused him of elitism, narrowness, and an overly exclusion of some canons, particularly in dismissing major authors like Charles Dickens and D.H. Lawrence, though he would later praise Lawrence in the book D.H. Lawrence, Novelist. Feminist, post-colonial and postmodern scholars later critiqued Leavis for ignoring class, junta and empire in his analysis. Now let's talk about the current relevance of the work. Canon formation. The great tradition remains a foundational text in debates over what constitutes a literary canon. Moral criticism. Leavis's emphasis on ethical seriousness continues to inform criticism in a conservative, educational, and ethical circles. Close reading. His influence on detailed textual analysis and a formal integrity persists in literary pedagogy. Pedagogical legacy. English departments worldwide still teach Leavis's method, though often alongside critiques of his approach. Contrast with the theory. Leavis's work is often placed in opposition to post-structuralism, feminism, and post-colonialism, offering a stark alternative focused on values, depth, and tradition. Now let's discuss the main quotes from the Book of Criticism. The first one. The great English novelists are Jane Austen, George Eliot, Henry James, and Joseph Conrad, to stop for the moment at that point in the tradition. This is Leavis's most famous and controversial claim, setting the boundaries of his literary canon. It asserts a clear hierarchy of value in English fiction based on moral seriousness and artistic discipline. Now the next quote. They are all distinguished by a vital capacity for serious and a morally significant experience. Leavis defines greatness in literature through a writer's ability to explore deep moral questions and a human experience. He prioritizes ethical depth over popularity or entertainment. Now the next quote. The novelist's proper business is with the problematics of human personality. For F.R. Leavis, the novel should focus on the complexity of individual character and ethical decision-making. He insists that psychological and moral insight are the hallmarks of great fiction. Now the next quote. The tradition is one in which the creative energy of the serious writer is deeply involved with the moral life. Here, Leavis emphasizes that great literature is not just about a style or form, it is morally engaged. The tradition he refers to values the ethical dimension of artistic expression. Now the next quote. Moral intensity is what distinguishes the work of the novelist, the great tradition. Leavis argues that true literary value lies in how intensely the novelist examines human motives and their ethical complexities. Such intensity separates literary greatness from mere storytelling. Now the next quote. Art is not a self-expression, nor is it a form of escape. It is a form of responsibility. This quote counters the idea of art as personal indulgence or diversion. Leavis demands that literature be accountable to truth, society, and moral engagement. Now the next quote. What matters in literature is not the author's intention, but the achieved work and its values. Leavis stresses textual integrity and the ethical content embedded in the final literary product. The outcome, not the author's mindset, determines critical value. Now the next quote. Jane Austen was the first of the great English novelists. Leavis begins the canon with Jane Austen, recognizing her for her clarity, irony, and moral intelligence. Leavis credits her with initiating the English novel's most serious possibilities. The next quote. In George Eliot, we find a consciousness of the whole tradition of thought, art, and morality. Eliot's writing is praised for its intellectual and moral range. Leavis sees her as a thinker as well as an artist, someone who moralizes not didactically but with a deep humanism. Now the next quote. Henry James' concern with the moral life is central to his art. For F.R. Leavis, Henry James is an exemplary moralist of the novel, not because he preaches, but because he investigates the moral subtleties of behavior and choice. His characters live within finely drawn psychological and ethical worlds. Now the next quote. Joseph Conrad's fiction is a sustained exploration of the moral consciousness under pressure. F.R. Leavis sees Joseph Conrad as a modern inheritor of the tradition, dealing with imperialism, existential doubt, and irresponsibility. His narratives examine how humans confront a moral collapse and ambiguity. Now the next quote. Sentimentality is the cardinal sin in literature. F.R. Leavis dismisses emotional excess or artificiality in a fiction. For him, genuine feeling must arise from truthfully rendered characters and situations, not a manipulation or melodrama. Now the next one. Criticism must be a matter of discrimination, judgment, and the developed sense of value. This quote outlines Leavis's critical method, that is, evaluation through rigorous standards. He believes criticism is not opinion, but an educated response to literary merit. The next quote. The essential function of literature is the exploration of value. F.R. Leavis sees literature as a space to examine what is meaningful in human life. Art becomes a dialogue on values, personal, social, and philosophical values. Now the next quote. The novel, at its best, is the most comprehensive and a human form of literary art. This quote elevates the novel as a genre uniquely suited to expressing the breadth of human life. Its scope allows for deep engagement with the personal and ethical. Now the next quote. What is significant is what is difficult and demands intelligence. Leavis resists the simplification or entertainment in literature. He contends that worthwhile literature challenges the reader's intellect and moral sense. Now the next quote. Greatness in literature is inseparable from greatness of vision. This links artistic quality to depth of insight. A great writer must possess a profound worldview that informs and elevates the text. Now the next quote. We must read with full attention to realize the complexity of language and structure. Close reading is a cornerstone of our Leavis method. Literary greatness is revealed through the intrinsic patterns of language and narrative form. Now the next quote. Literature is not primarily about ideas, but about a felt life. Although ideas are present, Leavis emphasizes experience, emotion, and a perception as central. The novel must convey the lived intensity of moral and emotional existence. The next quote. There is no greatness where there is no seriousness. This quote sums up Leavis' central doctrine. Literary value depends on the seriousness with which a writer engages the world. Without ethical and emotional gravity, art is hollow.